Ever Young, a play in one act by Alice Gerstenberg. The year is 1920. We're in a corner of the lobby of the Poinciana Hotel, Palm Beach, Florida.
Agnes, put aside a chair for Mrs. Blanchard. I nodded to her in this direction as we came out of the dining room.
She will like this corner. We can see everyone who crosses the lobby.
Oh, how many sights and how many frights shall we see tonight? Oh, really, Agnes, I wish you would give up wearing your old-fashioned onyx and amber. Why don't you turn in all that junk and get something new and fashionable?
Oh, I've never had any desire to buy jewelry since my husband died.
Oh, but that was ages ago. I've had all my diamonds reset since Thomas went.
There's the young bride who arrived yesterday.
Oh, where?
Over there, near the fountain, in a very low gown.
I don't see her.
She moved behind the column.
I can't see her. Oh, why didn't you tell me before the column got in the way?
If you were not so vain, Phoebe, you would wear decent glasses like mine.
Indeed, I can see perfectly well.
I don't blame you for using your lorgnette. It does add distinction to your Poindexter manner.
What? Are you still impressed by my manner?
I have been impressed for 50 years. Dear me, Phoebe, is it really 50 years since we were debutantes?
Shh. Don't let the hotel know. I'm 70.
No one guesses it.
I certainly don't feel it. But let me tell you, these young debutantes of today, with their supercilious airs, their sophisticated conversation, their smoking in public places, are not going to crowd me back into a grandmother's corner. No, I shall live for another 20 years at least, if only to see these young things grow into the troubles of married life. And it will please me.
Why have you such animosity towards the debutantes? You terrorize them. Everywhere they sidestep for you. In elevators, corridors, in the ballroom, on the beach, they put themselves out to be deferential to you. But they never see me, even though we've been here since the opening of the season.
Well, it is because you don't create the atmosphere which demands their attention. I am putting on all the Poindexter airs I can think of to terrorize them. Their youth and prettiness is no longer mine, but I hold over them the whip hand. I am a dowager, a member of the society that once ruled New York, and still does to a certain extent, and they shall bow to me as long as I inhale one breath of life.
I do believe you are jealous of the present generation.
I am fiercely jealous.
But we've had our day, Phoebe. It's their turn. It's our time to sit back and give them a chance.
Agnes, you have kept your health living on your estate in Long Island, but you have watched the inevitable drying up of flowers and leaves in autumn, and you have followed what seems to you the inevitable process of autumn into winter. Well, my hair may be as white as snow, but my blood is still red. Oh, look, there's that presumptuous May Wiggum. She is 18 and so rude, I should like to spank her.
They all fear you, Phoebe.
Well, I hope so.
Good evening, Mrs. Blanchard.
Oh, we have kept a chair for you.
Good evening, Mrs. Poindexter, Mrs. Dorchester.
Sit down, Mrs. Blanchard.
No, don't help me. I'm about to throw this cane away.
Throw your cane away?
Yes, I am not going to need it in a week or so.
I heard of a woman the other day who dispensed with her cane.
Who was it?
That golf champion. What's her name? She's over there.
I shall have to ask her about it.
Are you getting stronger, Mrs. Blanchard?
I must get stronger. I am tired of depending upon a cane. Everywhere I go, people are putting themselves out to be polite to me. Men help me, chauffeurs help me, bellboys help me, waiters help me, debutantes help me.
Debutantes? Oh, I can't scarcely believe that.
The debutantes hop around me like so many sandflies, all of them wanting to help me walk. Their politeness to my infirmity is an insult. If they would only be rude.
Mrs. Payne Dexter was just complaining that they were too rude.
Rude. Oh, they are.
If they are rude to you, it's a compliment. They do not look upon you as old and decrepit. I resent their solicitude. In a day or two, I shall throw this old thing away.
Mrs. Blanchard.
It is no idle threat. I mean it.
But you told me you had used it 15 years.
So I have, and it is old enough to throw away. It is the oldest leg I have, and it is going to be thrown away.
Oldest?
What are you doubting?
My dear Mrs. Blanchard, you just said your cane is the oldest leg you have.
So it is.
Mrs. Dorchester would like to know just exactly how old the others are.
The others are just exactly not more than 9 months.
9 months?
Do you think I should say 90 years?
Isn't that a little closer to the truth?
But it is not the truth. The wonderful truth is that my legs are not 71 years old. They are not more than 9 months old. I have been reading an amazing book.
What is it?
Truth and Youth.
This book says that every cell in our body is completely new every 9 months.
I heard about that. My daughter was reading a book about that. I forget what it was called.
Each cell reproduces itself according to the impression given to it by our subconscious mind. As we grow old, we hold a thought of age and impress ourselves with that thought. But if we rid ourselves of the illusion of old age, we remain ever young.
I believe in accepting old age with as good a grace as possible.
Rubbish. That is antediluvian. I am just beginning to learn how to live. Do you know I have just obtained my divorce?
Have you divorced Mr. Blanchard after all these years?
Yes, after all these years. My husband has been notoriously unfaithful to me. I grieved about it for more than 40 years, and I never had the sense to get rid of him. But now it's all as clear as day to me. If I have been a fool for 40 years, must I stay a fool forever?
How odd to think of your willfully giving up your husband, when we widows so wish ours back again.
Did your husband contest it?
My husband was amazed, indignant. He writes me imploring letters. He is old now and ready to settle down. Now, when he is ready to sit before the fireplace and watch me knit, I have played a trick on him. I would rather play roulette than knit. By the way, I gambled $300 away last night.
We left early.
That is at midnight.
I didn't come back to the hotel till morning. I stayed on and played, had breakfast there, came home without a ring on my finger, handed them over as security to a friend who thought it funny to take them.
We missed you on the beach this morning.
Oh, I slept till luncheon. I'm going back tonight to win my rings again. starting with $500.
Oh, before you know it, you will have gambled a fortune away.
Ah, I'm not worrying. I receive an amazingly high alimony. The court figured that I would not live long and that I needed much medical care. Well, I am not paying out any money for medical care. And when it comes to having a good time, I am making up for 40 years. I found only one man in my whole life whom I really loved, and he was not my husband. Be shocked if you want to. I am free now and can speak of it. I've never known what became of him.
I can't imagine what it must be not to love one's husband. I miss mine so.
I had been married only 4 months when I heard of my husband's infatuation for a married woman in our own set. He had married me only, it seems, to allay suspicion. Of course, I see now that I should have divorced him then and there, but I was very young, and it wasn't being done in those days. In those hours of my disillusion, a dashing young lieutenant understood my despair and planned to arouse my husband's jealousy and so bring him back to me. He succeeded, but meanwhile, I had fallen in love with the lieutenant.
And he with you, no doubt.
Yes,
Mrs. Blanchard, it is a life tragedy, but not a line of it shows in your face.
I wouldn't let it show in my face. I harbored a secret thought, a terrible thought, that my husband might die, that I might be free to find the other again, that then he should not see an old, wrinkled face after he had cherished the memory of my youth.
Think of living like that all these years when you might have had a divorce long ago.
It's humorous in a way, isn't it? That when women like you and Mrs. Dorchester are widowed, I had to put up with a husband who just wouldn't die.
What became of the lieutenant?
He asked to be transferred to another post. He wanted to go as far away from me as possible. No distance seemed far enough to break the magnetic attraction between us. Finally, he was sent as far away as China, and there we lost track of him in the Boxer Rebellion.
And you never heard from him again?
No. The government reported him as missing. No doubt the Chinese took him prisoner. If he died, and I think he must have died, all these years I have imagined that he died. I have felt his spirit near me, guiding me, watching over me.
Do you believe he could be near you? I don't believe that my husband is. I sit and knit and think of him, but the beyond seems nothing but void and silence.
Oh, I know Oliver Trent has never forgotten me. If he had lived or escaped, Oliver would have found me. I know Oliver died and that his spirit has been lovingly near me these 20 years.
My husband and I loved each other deeply. That love, it seems to me, should hold us together even after he's gone. But I can't believe that it does.
It does, and it will, if you have faith. There is nothing but love. I'm beginning to feel it. For a long while, I tried to make myself believe it. Now I am beginning to feel it deep within me.
Of course he loved you. I am sure he did.
If he were only alive, now that you have your divorce.
So, you see, my romance is only a shadow, only a thought. There is nothing tangible. I dare to keep no letters, not one single token of his, only my thoughts. But those thoughts have kept me from going to pieces all these years.
And the thoughts have kept your face so young.
I would not let my face change. If by some miracle I should see him again, I must be as he remembered me. But I couldn't control my body as well. I seemed to get wearier and wearier of life until I needed a cane to lean on. And then I doubled up on that, and here I am.
And here you are, threatening to walk without it.
I will too. I only sadden when I begin to think of the past. It's a bad habit. Only if I could be sure he died with me in his heart, I wouldn't mind so much his not being alive. If I knew that all these years it has been he guiding me and not my imagination and self-deception, that he is near me all the time. If I could but know that.
I should certainly continue to believe that he remembered me.
I'm sure he did.
I built my life upon faith in him. If I should be robbed of this belief in his love for me, I think it would kill me.
But if you could have proof of his love?
Oh, if I could have proof.
Oh, there's that beautiful Mrs. Courtney Page. I should like to know her better. Shall we invite her to sit with us?
Who is she?
The woman in white. She has just come out of mourning for her last husband.
Last? How many did she have?
The manicurist told me she had 3, and the clerk in the jeweller's shop told me only 1. They were praising her pearls. Ooh, I'd love to see her pearls up close. Wouldn't you?
Oh, yes. Do invite her over. I'd like to exchange data about husbands. Is she down here alone?
They say she came alone, but I've noticed her on the beach with one man and by the pool with another. She's alone now, though, and evidently looking for a place to sit. Call her over, Agnes.
But I don't know her. Phoebe, you call her.
Don't you know her, Mrs. Poindexter?
Well, I might pretend to. How do you do?
Oh, how do you do? You must pardon me, I don't recall the name.
Mrs. Poindexter of New York. Oh, don't tell me, Mrs. Courtney Page, that you have forgotten me.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Poindexter, a name so well known. We met, I remember, exactly 5 years ago at the opera. Your box was next to the Carols. We were their guests one evening when my late husband and I were in New York on a wedding trip.
Why, yes, of course. How clever of you to remember. My friends, Mrs. Dorchester, Mrs. Blanchard.
How do you do? Won't you sit down?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Mrs. Dorchester and I have been spending the season at Palm Beach. Mrs. Dorchester is native of Long Island.
And I came down from St. Louis and had the good fortune to become acquainted with them personally. I have always known Mrs. Poindexter by reputation.
Blanchard of St. Louis. The name is familiar.
My daughter married the Duke of Corbray.
Oh, yes, but just lately. It seems to me I saw that name lately.
No doubt you did. I am celebrating my divorce.
I think she has a great deal of courage to face the world alone, voluntarily.
It is rejuvenating to feel so marvelously free.
She is quite right. Why should a woman remain in bondage when there is at every turn a new chance for a better alliance?
Good gracious, do you believe me capable of marrying again at my age?
Why not? A woman can marry any man she wants.
Oh, the man may get the woman he wants. Henry kept insisting until I married him. But I don't think it's the other way around. Do you, Phoebe?
I don't know. I worked very hard for Thomas, but I got him.
I haven't any opinion. The one I wanted I met only when it was too late.
What do you mean by too late?
after I was married to someone else.
But now you are divorced.
Oh, it's too late now. My romance was over 20 years ago.
You really think a woman can marry any man she wants?
I've proved it. I was engaged 3 times, married once widowed, and now I have another fiancé. Isn't that proof?
You are, if you will pardon my frankness, a very handsome woman, Mrs. Courtney Page. Such attractions would not require much further effort on your part.
Thank you. But there is a science about attracting love, as there is about everything else. There hasn't been a moment in my life when I haven't been in love.
That's impossible. There are not enough people in the world for that.
Oh, yes, there are. As long as you hold the thought of love, you will find those you can love. And as long as you love, it will attract love in return.
Oh, where is your home now, Mrs. Courtney Page?
Chicago, but I was born in San Francisco. I was Emily Tarden.
Emily Tarden? Oh, you don't mean it. Are you truly? Why, it seems just yesterday that when all the magazines were full of your photographs, the most beautiful debutante on the Western coast.
They did make a fuss about it when I became engaged to Harlow Bingham. I was only 18 then. When I look back and think what a brilliant career I might have had with Harlow, well, you know, he died before we were married, an accident, horse racing. Poor Harlow. He gave me my first pearls.
Magnificent pearls.
Oh, I have scarcely been able to keep my eyes off of them.
This strand, the shortest and smallest, was given to me by Harlow Bingham upon our engagement. They were a gift of thanks because I had given up the desire to go on the stage to marry him.
Oh, did you want to be an actress?
I have wanted nothing more all of my life.
Did you marry Mr. Courtney Page after Mr. What's his name died? Your first fiance?
No, I became engaged to Philip Whitaker, an Englishman I met in Egypt. He had been in diplomatic service in India. He brought me the second strand, the second largest and longest, from India. He went ahead to South Africa to prepare a home, intending to come back for me. But he died of fever and we were never married.
How thrillingly tragic.
I could not have endured it.
And the other strands, you have 2 more.
This third one was the gift of my husband, Mr. Courtney Page. I would not let him give them to me until after we were married.
That was a wise precaution. They say pearls mean tears.
It is surprising he risked giving you pearls at all.
He felt he had to because he was jealous of the others, of course. I couldn't throw the others away. They were so beautiful and so costly.
Naturally not.
So he finally purchased a strand in Vienna, larger and longer than the other.
And then, did he die too?
Oh no, Mr. Courtney Page was the third man I was engaged to, but the only one I married. He died scarcely a year ago.
Will you have a lozenge? I ate something tonight that didn't quite agree with me.
Thank you.
Mrs. Blanchard?
No, thanks. I don't need them anymore since I am taking the new diet.
Oh, what is your new diet?
Nuts, fruit, no meat, no bread, no hot vegetables, no coffee, no tea,
Have you stopped eating altogether?
only fruit and nuts. I feel as light as a feather. In another day, I shall walk and throw away that stick.
You said in another week you would throw it away.
Now be careful. Don't take risks.
The book says we must not have negatives in our mind. I tell you that if I can have enough faith, I shall walk alone.
Oh, the book.
truth and youth.
Well, the average man and woman of middle age chooses a comfortable chair and settles down into it with the thought that life is finished and it is necessary to await the end. Women do this more than men. When women see their little children grown to manhood and independent of them, they feel their use in life is over. Nothing is more untrue.
Phoebe, excuse me, but what did you say was the name of the woman walking with the aviator? Did she fly down with him from New York?
That's Hilda Dane, one of the Follies. They say she has her skin insured when she's on the beach.
I have never seen her skin. She paints it up with whitewash. Yesterday on the beach, she wore a lemon-colored cape with a big sable collar and every diamond that has ever been given to her.
Is she married to the aviator?
Oh, don't ask absurd questions, Agnes. The grandmother is a free woman. She has a new youth. She has the vision of experience with which to experiment for greater wisdom. Ah, Agnes, you must read this book. It will stir you up. Your very mind is getting like wool.
I've always been more domestic than you, Phoebe.
Domestic? Haven't I done my share? Haven't I run a house in New York, a house in Newport, a house in London, apartments in Paris? No, it is not domesticity that is making you old. It is mental lethargy.
That is the worst enemy to youth, mental lethargy. I refuse to have it.
Mrs. Dorchester doesn't live for herself anymore. When she is at home, she is a slave to her grandchildren. When she is away, she can scarcely take time from the wool to look at a coconut grove.
Oh, I can knit without looking.
I am more selfish. I let my children and grandchildren alone. As long as they're not starving, it's no business of mine to live for them. I have my opera box. I give dinner parties and entertain distinguished visitors. I have my club committees, my charities, and I am studying art so as to be able to add to my husband's collection of paintings, well, as a memorial to him. But you, Agnes, you make your children dependent on you. You are always nursing some grandchild through something.
But when they're ill, I must help them.
Oh, you think you must. And they let you think it because they don't want to hurt your feelings by letting you know that they don't need you.
But it isn't a happy thought not to be needed.
Oh, you were telling us about your pearls, Mrs. Courtney Page. It is an exquisite pleasure to look at them.
This fourth strand, the largest and longest, is the gift of my new fiancé. I'm down here waiting for time to pass. We shall be married as soon as it seems correct.
Oh, dear me. There's Mrs. Wallace Morse in another gown. And as usual, no petticoat.
Aren't you lucky to find a fiancé again? I'm afraid I couldn't bring myself to care for any man as much as I have cared for one in the past.
Nor I.
Men aren't worth bothering about.
I was so lost without marriage companionship that when I was in Paris last autumn, I picked out the most eligible man I could find. He is quite old, but very nice and has valuable mines in Australia.
Is he a Frenchman?
No, an American, but he hasn't been in this country since he was sent to the American legation in China. He's had an exciting life. He was taken prisoner in the Boxer Rebellion and was reported missing for years. But a faithful Chinese servant smuggled him to Australia.
Your fiancé, his name?
Oliver Trent, president of the Australia Mining Company.
Oh, Oliver Trent. You said Oliver Trent.
Why, wasn't that the name of the man you loved? Wasn't that the name, Phoebe?
The man, Mrs. Blanchard, I don't understand.
Mrs. Blanchard had been telling us about a friend of hers who had been lost in the Boxer Rebellion. She thought he had died. No doubt it is a consolation to her to know that he still lives.
No, Mrs. Courtney Page, I can scarcely bear the fact that he still lives. I have held him in my heart as one dead for 20 years. I've lived on the thought that he loved me. He loved me once, but I know now that men cannot be true. He has forgotten me for younger and handsomer women.
I wouldn't let it bother me. Men are not worth such lifelong adoration. You look around and someone else will turn up.
Perhaps Mrs. Courtney Page will give him up if we tell her what he means to you.
I want my own, not what is cast off.
You want me to give him up? It would be hard for me to do. It wasn't easy to win him. I had to use all the art I've learned in past experiences to get him. He's never been married and is a little afraid, but I won him. If I give him up, are you sure he would remember you?
No, do not trouble. I shall have to bear it. I feel quite blind, as if I had been struck on the head. But maybe it is just my heart. You see, he and I were very much in love, but I was married and he had to go away. He promised not to forget, but he was young and maybe I shouldn't have believed him. When I never heard again and the government reported him missing, everyone said he must be dead. That last day before he went, I met him clandestinely in the park. I cut off a bit of my hair that day. It was golden then, like golden amber, he said. And he put it into an amber locket he wore on his watch charm.
I remember amber locket from a watch charm. I have it here. I've had it 20 years. Oh, my son brought it home from the Philippines. It was given to him by a Chinese servant.
The locket.
A Chinese servant?
Yes, the very one you said rescued him. I remember it all now. How stupid of me not to even think about it before. But as Phoebe says, my mind's all wool. That Chinese servant?
Yes, go on.
You know, the Boxers stormed the legation. He fought desperately and valiantly. The Chinese servant described all that, how he was taken prisoner and tortured. At night, he raved into delirium. He called a woman's name, but there was no one of that name in the legation. My son told me, but I have such a wretched memory for names. It wasn't a real name that one could identify. It must have been a nickname.
Was it Dee Dee?
Dee Dee. Dee Dee, that's what it was. Oh, my stupid head.
It meant dear.
Why have you kept this from us all this time?
How could I know my son's story was about Mrs. Blanchard until she mentioned the watch charm? But now it all comes back to me. At night, in delirium, he called this name. How he loved this woman. He took the watch charm and opened it and kissed the blonde lock of hair, and he treasured it as nothing else he had. He treasured it so highly that he gave it to his Chinese servant to keep for him, for fear they would rob him of it. They took his money and everything else he had, but the servant kept the amber safely. But
then how did you forget it?
That's just it. I'll tell you how it was. Oh, my stupid memory. The amber. The Chinese servant smuggled him into a boat.
Who was smuggled into the boat?
Mr. What's his name?
Oliver Trent?
Yeah, into the boat. And the excitement of concealing him behind some kegs. The ship began to move, and the Chinese servant had to run to get off. And in running, he forgot to give up the amber watch charm. And so he kept it. He kept it as a talisman. And a few years later, when he saved my son in the Philippines, he gave it to him as a talisman when my son was very ill with fever. And my son became superstitious about it and had it set into a bracelet for me as my protection. Now I shall give it to you, for it is your talisman, Mrs. Blanchard, a talisman of his undying love.
And that is why I had such difficulty in making him care for me. He told me about his first love. He spoke of her as Dee Dee, and he told me that when he lost the amber, he felt that she had gone out of his life forever. He said that she was married and that it was unlawful for him to think of her, but he has never forgotten. He told me he would love her always. And when I tell him of you, Mrs. Blanchard, he will come to you at once, for you have been right. His love has been yours and is yours still. I think you ought to have these pearls.
Oh, no, thank you. I don't want them. I have this locket. Oh, excuse me, ladies, if I go to my room. I've had my answer out of the silence, and I'm a little unstrung.
Without her cane.
Don't remind her.
Poor dear, poor dear.
Was that all true, what you said, Agnes? I never heard you talk so fast in all your life. And how you suddenly got such memory. You never told me anything about an amber charm, and you've worn it forever, it seems to me.
Father gave it to me on my 21st birthday
Hmm.
to save a lock of my blonde hair. I risked the chance that mine was a duplicate of hers.
And all you said was a lie?
It doesn't matter. We shall make it come true.
But when she finds out that you've deceived her,
She will never find out. I shall warn him to hide away his amber watch charm.
Does he still wear it?
Yes, and many other charms from other loves. They say he has been a great beau.
the outrageous flirt.
Poor dear Mrs. Blanchard. I thought she would die. I was afraid she was dying. I had to say something to bring her to.
But what have you gained by these lies?
Does she not walk?
Yes, it is a miracle.
Merely a miracle of the realization of love.
But it is built on a false belief. He has not been true to her.
Mrs. Poindexter, I have never questioned the reality of anyone's love for me. That which counts is, after all, only that which is in our own hearts. If Mrs. Blanchard is convinced of his love, that is all that is really necessary.
But when you marry him,
I shall not marry him. I shall only keep the pearls.
If you love him,
Well, as for that, I can always find someone else.
oh, gracious, my wool is a mess.
you'd better give up knitting, Agnes, and turn to story writing. Oh, you've quite surprised me with your sudden brilliance. Bellboy, you may have these glasses.
Your diamond platinum lorgnette?
Huh. Do you think I have to manufacture a love affair to help me get rid of my glasses?
She walked without her cane.
Oh, to stay young, one must love.